Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the DLF Trade Show. Congratulations, all of you watching, on winning your championships, because if you watch the DLF Trade Show, you won your championships. All of them, right? Every single one, Addison? Every one of them?
Every
league?
single one. Yep.
Every single one. Exactly, right?
Hopefully.
I did not.
Did you make it to the championship on that team that you traded Henry for Darrell Henderson?
No. Yeah,
I did, but I lost.
I will be extremely upfront and say this was probably the worst season of fantasy I have literally ever had. Ever.
Feels like it for me as well.
No, but like, yeah. Like, I don't have a notebook or a spreadsheet, but like, I feel it in here that it absolutely was, and I kind of feel it in here as well. So it was not pretty. But you know what is pretty? You are the DLF Trade Show. That's what's pretty. We are here, and the season's over. So this is my time, the non-point scoring season. I love this because it's all fake. It is all made up. It is all just, how do you feel about this guy? And it's so much easier to get trades done because we don't have to make that connection, that compromise between points and dynasty value. It is just straight up dynasty value. So it makes it so you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about filling a starting lineup. You don't have to worry about, well, if I give up 2, am I going to be able to fill my wide receiver slots? Forget positions. It doesn't even matter right now. And that just opens the door to trades you may not have considered making 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we are going to have some interesting topics coming in the next few weeks. And right now, we thought it would be best to, what's some actionable stuff to kind of get ahead of the curve on? And Addison had the great idea of impending free agents, because while free agency doesn't start till middle of March, it's soon going to be very known to the world who is coming up on free agency, who is going to a new team, because usually, especially if you're in a crappy situation, going to a new team ups your dynasty value. So maybe go for it now. Maybe while people are still like me crying that they lost and in their leagues, and like, fine, I'll let this guy go. Life doesn't matter anymore. I don't care if he's on my team. So go try and get these guys now. And don't forget, you don't have to like these guys. All you have to do is make sure you get them at a price that is below what you think the bump will be when they sign somewhere. So, I mean, let's get it.
Sell if they're going to go to if you think they're going to a worse situation. That's also a possibility as well. But yeah, in most cases, especially what we're going to be talking about today, it's more likely going to be buying before their value increases.
All right, let's just jump straight into it at this point. First one we are going to talk about, we're starting with the big boys, Davante Adams. Well, I guess let me ask first. Do you think he stays in Green Bay?
They're talking about this like franchise tag stuff, which I think makes sense. I think that would royally make Davante Adams mad, especially if Aaron Rodgers is not on the team, although they're talking about Aaron Rodgers being on the Packers now. So this is the whole Davante Adams dynamic and his value is going to be more influenced by just his free agency and more so like the connection to Rodgers and the Rodgers situation and stuff. But I do think that he will ultimately probably just be franchise tagged. And then if Rodgers does stay, he probably gets a tag and then probably works out that deal by June or whatever that deadline is. So,
and yeah. Well, I try not to use the phrase quarterback proof because it always gets proven wrong. Davante Adams is very, 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 very good at the wide receiver position in football. So I'm not saying it doesn't matter who his quarterback is. I'm just saying it doesn't need to be Aaron Rodgers. It's great that it has been, but I don't think it needs to be. So let's go. Let's get into it. In a 16-team Superflex league, we have a trade of Davante Adams and Jerry Jeudy for Justin Jefferson and Jarvis Landry. There are far too many J's in what you just made me read.
Sorry.
Whew. I'm going to make you answer first because there's too much in this that makes me question myself. What are you doing with this?
So when I initially saw this, I thought I was going to be on the Davante Adams, Jerry Jeudy side, but then I thought I could just get Justin Jefferson and have the best asset out of all four of these players. And then I know that we're in the non-point scoring season, but like if you hold on to Jarvis Landry, I still expect him to be the wide receiver one for the Browns in 2022. And Baker did get his 5th year picked up. So I think the quarterback for the Browns is at least going to be Baker Mayfield for one more year in 2022, which that might be a positive or a negative depending on how you look at it. But
last week it was a negative.
Yeah. But I think I would just take Justin Jefferson. I love having Davante Adams, but the situation is really up in the air. And I certainly think that we still lean towards he's just going to do what he did this past year and in 2020 with Aaron Rodgers again in 2022. I think that's the more likely outcome, but there's that other outcome where it's Jordan Love and he's still good, but he's not Davante Adams. And then we're talking about a 30-year-old Davante Adams who's like declining, you know? And then Jerry Jeudy, they need a quarterback, but he's still then dealing with Cortland Sutton. Tim Patrick resigned. Noah Fant's still there. The running backs can catch passes. There's a lot of weapons there that Jerry Jeudy hasn't been able to really separate himself from, on top of the fact that, like I said, they still need a quarterback. So that's really, really iffy. So I think I just take all of that out and I just take Justin Jefferson, who is like the wide receiver one in Dynasty, wide receiver 1A, 1B with Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
And just call it a day and be happy with that. And if I want to break him up later, I can do that because he's the most valuable asset in this whole entire trade.
Okay, so I actually went through the exact same thing you went through. I saw this and I'm like, of course I'm taking Adams and Jerry Jeudy. I'm not taking Adams and Jerry Jeudy. No, don't get me wrong. I think this is a very fair trade. I think this is perfectly fine. I know I personally see Jerry Jeudy through rose-colored glasses. I'm a very big fan of Jerry Jeudy. There's a chance he doesn't get much better. The quarterback on that team will matter a lot. I'm not super concerned about Cortland Sutton or Tim Patrick because I think Jerry Jeudy is very different than both of them. Well, Tim Patrick's like an in-between of Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, but I'm not worried about Sutton because they're easily opposite sides of the field, you know, X and Y kind of thing. So now if Russell Wilson goes to Denver, Jerry Jeudy to the moon. This side, then, you know, I'll be thrilled to have Jerry Jeudy and Davante Adams. But there's a lot of situations where what if Denver does just want to keep playing it safe at quarterback and either keeps Teddy or goes get Jimmy Garoppolo, like something weird like that? Did you just? It looked like you just threw up in your mouth a little bit. When I think I did.
Garoppolo. Yeah. It's just
like you just went like. Whoa.
Honestly, it's just the whole like. Imagine if Denver doesn't get another quarterback or gets like or does something weird like a Jimmy G situation. Like that's just like. How many times are you going to continue to beat that horse?
Exactly. And you listed all of the things that can go wrong with Davante Adams. What can go wrong with Justin Jefferson?
I mean, I guess you could say that Kirk Cousins isn't a Viking next year.
He's still
case now we still have quarterback issues, but
he still has that last year.
He has
of
one
all
more
of that
year
money
on his contract. Yeah.
And Jarvis Landry, I believe I heard someone say there's an out in his contract for the Browns, but
that's interesting.
He's like such a safe wide receiver that why not take the best wide receiver, the best player in this trade, and someone I consider to be the safest and be good with that. And like you said, if you so choose later on to just be like, I'll take up 2 other really good players for Justin Jefferson if I feel like doing it, because you'll be able to do that anytime you want. Every minute that passes, Davante Adams' value is probably going down. I don't know what really happens. Okay, let me rephrase this. Do you think there's something that happens in free agency that makes Davante Adams' value go up? If he and Rodgers stay in Green Bay, his value stays the same, right?
At least to where it is right now. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So, a borderline top 5 wide receiver just because he's fantastic.
Yeah. So to me, they're both very good. I like both sides of this trade, but I think the upside and the safety both belong on the Jefferson and Landry side.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I'm going with it. By the way, Jarvis Landry can be cut for the Browns can save $15 million if they cut Jarvis Landry.
Bye, Jarvis.
So
DPJ season, baby.
he's probably gonna get. I think he's still a Brown, but that contract's getting reworked.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. We have a 12-team Superflex league where we have Davante Adams and Melvin Gordon for DeAndre Swift and Michael Gallup. This is pretty much just kind of Adams for Swift at this point. Melvin Gordon is 65 and Michael Gallup is 117.5. You can kind of just whatever. Davante Adams 615.4, DeAndre Swift 669. I get it that young running backs are the thing to be, and I know that Swift is worth more, but I think I want Adams and Gordon. Like,
ooh.
I don't know if it's the right answer, but I think that's where I am because, like we've said a bunch of times, Adams is good. Well, at least I've said it. Adams is very good, and I think he will continue to score the way he's been scoring. Not necessarily regardless of his quarterback is, but as long as it's not terrible, I still think he's going to be a wide receiver one. Melvin Gordon, like, what happens if he stays in Denver? He's really good there.
Yeah.
And I get that his value is 65 on the analyzer, but Michael Gallup, also a free agent, by the way, we have no idea what's going to end up with him. So, to me, I take Davante Adams. I take my positional bias in wide receivers. I take a player I love and I stick with him instead of going to a running back who kind of has been hurt a bit. I'm not, not throwing those words around that we don't want to hear, but a running back on a really bad team. And that's kind of not where you want to be. So I don't think it's the right answer because the totals, by the way, 680.5 for the Adams side, 786.6 for the Swift side. But I think I take the Adams side.
So I'm on the opposite side. I actually realized while you were talking, and then based on the conversation we had with the Justin Jefferson trade, that I think this is kind of similar to the Justin Jefferson in that DeAndre Swift, yes, even though he's a running back, he's an elite young running back, or at least we perceive him to be
at this point, right?
So he's gonna be 23 years old next year. He's definitely going to be a top 5 dynasty wide receiver or dynasty running back, if not top 3. It's basically between him and Najee and whatever with Javonte Williams and the other veterans. But he's up there, and I think that value holds regardless of what happens in the offseason. Honestly, I could see it potentially go up if that team as a whole gets better. Because you add another exactly. You add another wide receiver. Maybe they surprise.
Just let Hawkinson get healthy.
Exactly. Maybe they surprise us and they draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
In which case, there's potential and upside with a rookie over Jared Goff. But I think that his situation can definitely be perceived as getting better, or at least can get better.
Yeah.
Davante Adams, like we mentioned, if everything happens with Aaron Rodgers staying and with him staying in Green Bay, then he's status quo. But he's the one that could take a big drop if those things don't fall Davante Adams' way. So I think I take the stability in DeAndre Swift now, and then, like I said with Justin Jefferson, you can break that up later if you need to. I think you can still, back in I think you can in July, in August, you can trade Swift for Davante Adams if you want to do that at that point in the year.
For sure.
So.
No, yeah, you're absolutely valid point. But, and again, it might be my bias towards Adams, my bias towards wide receivers in general, but I'm sticking with it. You can't make me change my mind. You could, but you didn't. All right, our next player is, so the bias is going to be real for these. Juju Smith-Schuster. The first trade the 12-team, one quarterback. I know you're excited. I know, I get it. 12-team, one quarterback. The first trade we have is Michael Thomas and Juju Smith-Schuster for Tyler Lockett. Now, the values on here, Michael Thomas, 189.7. Juju Smith-Schuster, 180.2. Michael Thomas is valued over Juju Smith-Schuster, but you know what? Tyler Lockett is valued over both of them. 210.3, by the way. So this is a 25 and a 28-year-old receiver for a 29-year-old wide receiver.
Oh, man. Michael Thomas is younger than Lockett? Wow.
Yeah. And Michael Thomas came in old and everything. So here's my biggest problem with this. I have a few. Never mind. But, okay, so my two problems are Juju Smith-Schuster did not get bad. And we kind of feel like he did. If he stays in Pittsburgh, they're getting a new quarterback, which means he'll do better than he did last season. Or he goes somewhere else and gets paid to do so, in which case they're going to use him because they just gave him a lot of money. Now, on the other hand, Russell Wilson might not be in Seattle next season. What is Tyler Lockett without Russell Wilson?
Not good.
Not good. Now, don't get me wrong, and I don't mean to be negative towards the player of Tyler Lockett. He's talented. He's very good. It's not like he can do what he does being bad. But having one of the best quarterbacks in the league with his ridiculous throwing and ridiculous ability to make plays last 7-8 seconds before he throws the ball and get the ball to Tyler Lockett accurately, not many people can do that. So I don't see the upside in trading two of these guys whose values are way too low. Okay, Michael Thomas's might not be way too low, but it's depressed. If he signs with a good team, then all of a sudden his value is going to jump up, even though he may not be that wide receiver one ever. He most likely won't be that wide receiver one ever again. But to me, honestly, at this point, I take Juju over Lockett by himself. And again, that might just be me. That might be my bias because I like Juju, but it makes sense to me. Like you're talking about a 4-year age difference in general, and what will probably be pretty similar outputs.
Yeah. I love that we are talking about Juju again, because it gives me another opportunity to say that Juju is a good wide receiver, and I don't understand why we hate him. Literally going through the entire trade finder, it's just a whole bunch of garbage. One was Juju for KJ Osborne. Or Juju for a random second.
Well, I mean, the KJ Osborne is that was a playoff move. I need someone to score points because Thielen's out.
But holy crap! Do we hate Juju that much? I don't understand it at all. And like you said, the situation in Pittsburgh with the quarterback, and I've been saying all year long as a Steelers fan that the only quarterback situation that could happen in 2022 that's worse than Ben Roethlisberger at this point in his career is Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins.
If they stay with them on their team.
Yeah. Yep. Literally anybody else. It could be Mitch Trubisky, Marcus Mariota, Kenny Pickett, or Matt Corral. Any of those guys are all better than Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins, and at least on par, if not better than what we had from Ben Roethlisberger this year.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then, like you said, he could sign somewhere else in free agency. That would be a really good situation for him. People talk about what if he went to Kansas City. I personally don't think that's a good landing spot for any free agent wide receiver because that team is so funneled through Tyreek and Travis Kelce. But if that happens, the perceived value shoots straight up. Just infinitely up for Juju. He could land in multiple different teams where that value is going to increase and his production is still going to be really, really good. And the ceiling might not be there like what we saw, in 2019 with him and Antonio Brown, but he's still good and he's fine. And I'm on with Michael Thomas. I'm more and more buying into Michael Thomas as a really buy low. And I think
getting really low.
Yeah, and I think what did it for me was seeing OBJ on the Rams and reminding myself that OBJ was still a good wide receiver. It was just the situation and the team and not him. And if Michael Thomas could find a team like that, then Michael Thomas is still really freaking good and he can produce as well. And yeah, all these wide receivers are valued the same way. So why not just take 2 dart throws instead of 1?
Yeah,
on Thomas and Juju.
This next trade, I think you may have messed up and meant to put this in the horrible trades.
I didn't mess up and mean to put in the horrible trades. This was another one of those Juju is hated on for no reason whatsoever.
12-team Superflex. My brain can't even process this to say it out loud. A 22 first and Juju Smith-Schuster for a 22 second and Tony Pollard. I'm not sure I would bother giving up a first for Pollard in a second. Unless you told me it was 3 spots difference. Am I going from the 112 to the 202? Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
But what? What?
Would you do if you switch the picks, Juju in a second for Pollard in a first? Because I think that's where the biggest difference lies.
I think
It's like the 200-point difference will flip.
Yeah, I would understand it a little bit more, but again, I still think that's hating on Juju. I understand if you told me it was like the 101 to 103 or 4 in a superflex league, maybe I would heavily consider it. But knowing that it's only random, like we have it in here, no. Again, I believe in Juju. I don't think there's a reason to value him that low.
Yeah. Yeah, this one was bad. And spoiler alert, there is a horrible trade with Juju in this at the end of this. So it is I'm telling you, dude, people hate Juju for no reason whatsoever. And it really irritates the crap out of me. And I'm just so ready for him to actually like play in 2022 and be really good. And then everybody else just like, figures it out.
Everyone else can zip it. Our last wide receiver for the day, hashtag Team Clemson big wide receiver, Mike Williams. I don't think he stays.
Really?
I don't.
You think it's him or the team?
I think it's the team. I don't think I think they would be fine putting out a mix of Palmer and whatever. I can't, like, my brain is completely blank on all the lesser wide receivers they have walking. Jalen Guyton, like until they find, or maybe they even use a decent draft pick on a wide receiver, because
or
Keenan,
sign somebody in free agency.
Go get Davante.
They
imagine Davante Adams going from Aaron Rodgers to Justin Herbert, like
with Keenan Allen. Who would you cover?
Defenses just go.
I don't know. I don't know. You know what they should? You know what should happen? So Davante stays in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. That's like perfect for him, right?
Yeah.
Mike Williams leaves, and the Chargers sign our boy Allen Robinson.
Because, Allen Robinson was phoning it in this year, so he did not try.
Oh, he did not care.
He was absolutely in don't get hurt mode.
I'm surprised he didn't Kenny Golladay fake an injury for the entire last half of the year,
like Mike Thomas did for the past 2 years. Well, I guess he didn't really fake it. He just didn't take care of himself purposely, so he would have to get surgery and stuff like that. Yeah. But I like Mike Williams. I have always liked Mike Williams. He had such a weird start to his career in the NFL with the few random injuries he had and when they happened. And he's had 1,000-yard seasons since then. It's just he hasn't been consistent. And I'm not a film person. I can't say, oh, well, he's running his routes perfectly and Herbert just isn't throwing to him. Maybe Mike Williams said something mean about Justin Herbert's mother. I have no idea. But all of a sudden, Mike Williams went from 12 targets a game to 5, and I don't know why. And it didn't, to the best of my knowledge, it didn't seem like anything that happened with Mike Williams.
Yeah, so it was like Herbert forgot that he had Keenan Allen, and then was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Keenan. I ignored you for the first 5 games. Let me make it up to you."
Right, and didn't distribute those targets fairly after that. So I'm good with Mike Williams walking. I got to be honest. And even if Mike Williams goes somewhere and ends up as a wide receiver too, I don't think I hate it, just because of how low Mike Williams' value is. He is more of that X-type guy, and I get that, but I don't think it's something he needs to be. So I'm absolutely cool with him going somewhere else. But that's not really what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about some trades. So in a 12-team superflex league.
I mean, it's technically not wrong.
Technically not wrong. Mike Williams is valued at 156.9, and Kadarius Toney, for Kadarius Toney, who's valued at 126.8. I get this trade. They are both a little bit of dart throws. They're both guys that have, Kadarius Toney flashed talent. Mike Williams has shown it. So I get, if you have Toney on your team, being of the mindset, I want this guy I've seen do it well that could go to a different situation where maybe he does get targeted more and do maybe not what he did the first 5 or so games, but something close to that. And I get on the other side, Mike Williams is going to be 28. He's going to a new team. We don't know where we're going. Kadarius Toney looked like a lot of fun when he was actually healthy and ready to play. The Giants are blowing things up, fingers crossed, full on, and not keeping Joe Judge and Daniel Jones. In which case, Kadarius Toney might just get a lot of targets because there's nothing else for them to throw to.
Right.
So there's a little bit of both. I see both sides of this, and I'm completely fine with either side you want. And that being said, I think I've already gushed over Mike Williams enough to say that that's my answer.
Yeah. My worry with Mike Williams in free agency, if he does leave, is there's a lot of teams, probably about 25, who have a worse quarterback than Justin Herbert.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, imagine if he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Like, they really need like an X wide receiver to pair with Devonta Smith, and Jalen Reagor's not it. But like, then you're getting targets from Jalen Hurts, and that's like, I feel like that's baseline.
But
Like,
I'm
that's
good
like the
with that
most
though.
mediocre.
Like, because I still think the volume will be there. And if you have Jalen Hurts as a quarterback who's just willing to throw the ball, and when you have, like Justin Herbert is too, and he also just happens to be able to place it very well. But Mike Williams is the kind of guy that can win uncontested catches, and Hurts is like, the scarier thing for Williams would be going to a Dak like quarter or Tua, guys that need to see their guy open before they throw the ball. I think that's my bigger concern more than what team he goes to, is who his quarterback is going to be for that pure reason.
I got you. But I mean, I think I'm on the Toney side on this one, opposite of you, just because, like you said, they're both dart throws, but I'm going to take the one that's 5 years younger.
Yeah, exactly. I get it.
And if Toney got like Jalen Waddle's usage, assuming that Toney,
I don't know if he could survive it.
That's true. But like, if that's like the kind of uses that they could have him be, and then use like Galladay as like Devontae Parker, and then you still have Saquon and all that. So he just needs a quarterback that is willing to throw it to him. But it was never Kadarius Toney, because even when he came back from injury, Toney was still the most targeted wide receiver on the Giants. I mean, they're not good targets. They were like Mike Glenn and Jake Fromm targets. But that should hopefully get better a little bit in 2022 with a different quarterback, or even Daniel Jones back.
Even if it is the healthy Daniel Jones, yeah.
So I think I take Kadarius Toney here over Mike Williams. Just kind of hit the reset button on a dart throw that I think is pretty similar for fantasy. And also one of those trades where you trade a descending asset for an ascending asset.
Yeah.
And just kind of go with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's wrong, but I get it. And the next trade we have is Mike Williams and Chase Edmonds for Elijah Mitchell and Kendrick Bourne. Mike Williams, 156.9. Chase Edmonds, 63. Elijah Mitchell, 185.5. Kendrick Bourne, 18.1. Sorry, Peter Howard. I think everything I've said before between all of the other trades we've talked about can just be mushed into here. I'm going to take my wide receiver bias. I'm going to take the bias over the player and take the Mike Williams side. I like Mike Williams. I think Chase Edmonds, who is also a free agent, by the way, will be on a team that will use him. I don't think he's going to get Kenyon Draked. Like, I don't think Chase Edmonds is of the level where he's going to be brought in as pretty much a backup or just a receiving, like a third down back. Like, I think this won't be a perfect comparison, but I think it's more of like a Kareem Hunt situation that I think he can be used as.
Yeah, I got you.
So I like that. I like clearly Edmonds over Kendrick Bourne. That's not really the point of it, because Mitchell is worth more than Williams. It's just that year over year, I will wait until week 2 of next year to see who the starting running back for the San Francisco 49ers is, and not try and guess on that right now.
Yeah. I agree with your bias on players and stuff, so that's why I'm taking Elijah Mitchell. I'm going to take the running back over the wide receiver, just because if they're both valued kind of similarly, I'm probably just going to take, at least in this range, not so much in the higher range, but at least in this range. When you get down to Mike Williams, where you're starting talking about picking him as a wide receiver 3 or 4 on your team, I'm going to take the RB that has RB2, RB1 upside.
That's fair.
And that's where I'm at with Elijah Mitchell. I do believe that Mitchell is the starter for the Niners in 2022. I also do believe that they add somebody, but whoever they add is not going to be significant. Jeff Wilson's a free agent. Raheem Mostert is a free agent. Trey Sermon is there. They hate him.
Is he?
And JaMychal Hasty. So they have to have somebody. And I don't think they're going to bring in like Melvin Gordon. I don't think that makes sense.
No.
But it's going to be somebody to come in as a backup for more depth. But it's going to be Elijah Mitchell because it's been Elijah Mitchell all year. And as long as Mitchell's healthy, it's going to be him. So I'll take him over Mike Williams and drop Kendrick Bourne.
He's been doing decently, like keeping Kendrick Bourne as a bottom of a roster guy in case you have an injury or like ridiculous bipocalypse. You could do worse.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Our last Mike Williams trade. Mike Williams for Van Jefferson and Rashad Penny. So here's my thing. You're laughing. You picked this trade.
I know. Oh, man.
I've been talking to people lately about Rashad Penny, and again, my bias is going to play in the fact, Seahawks fan, watching them draft him in the first round was infuriating. Him doing absolutely nothing since they drafted him in the first round is absolutely infuriating. That being said, he might be the starting running back on the team next year.
He has to sign. He's a free agent. They didn't pick up his 5th year. But yeah.
Good. I'm glad they didn't. But who's going to pay him more? The Seahawks, who used him at the end of the season, or are going to keep using him at the end of this season, or someone else who's watched him just do nothing for 4 years.
Yeah, definitely. Like he's on the Seahawks, I think.
Like I really firmly believe he's on the team, which is why I kind of talked like he was already there. If Russell Wilson leaves, do you want the running back on the Seahawks? Like I loved Rashad Penny coming out of college, except I loved him being drafted in the 3rd round of the NFL draft and in the early 2nd of rookie drafts, except that's not how it went. So I like the idea of Rashad Penny, but I'm just so bitter towards it that Moving on, I like Van Jefferson. Worries is the wrong word. The fact that they didn't just use him more and decided to bring in Odell Beckham. But can you blame a team for bringing in Odell Beckham is when you just lose Robert Woods? But Van Jefferson has been getting some uses. He's a very good deep ball player, and I think he can be more, but whether they don't seem to care. They have their guys do what they do and use them that way. Especially while you have Cooper Kupp there, you're not going to turn Van Jefferson into a possession guy. No. Yeah. So I guess it comes down to how much of a dart throw you think Mike Williams is versus do you want 2 dart throws? Because Van Jefferson and Rashad Penny are 100% dart throws.
So I'm actually really surprised that you have this closer than what the analyzer has that 100-point difference, which I guess, don't get me wrong.
I am 100% Mike Williams on this, without even thinking about it. I know, I do my best when actually evaluating a trade to not just use the way my brain works, because I don't know, man, it doesn't help anyone for me to put my values on these guys and all that stuff. But Mike Williams to me is the easy answer because we've seen Mike Williams do it. I still think Mike Williams can do it almost regardless of where he goes. I said before, there's a few people he can play with I think will hurt him. But I think he's a good enough wide receiver to be a decent wide receiver too. I think you need a bit of a prayer for Van Jefferson or Rashad Penny to be 2s at their position.
Yeah. I thought I was going to be the one that was trying to rationalize the Jefferson Penny one, because I do think that this trade is a little bit closer, but it does highly depend on Rashad Penny, A, being with the Seahawks next year, and B, getting the workload that he has received and staying healthy with that. Because if that happens, then he's going to be like a Leonard Fournette or James Conner type of running back next year, and that could be almost a league winner type of situation. I mean, he was a league winner for a lot of people in redraft and dynasty this year. So that could very well happen again next year if he stays healthy. Van Jefferson, I like. I wish that the Rams liked him. It seems like they don't, because like you said, with they already had him, so why bring in OBJ? But at the same time, it's OBJ. It's
Yeah.
like when I didn't blame the Buccaneers for like bringing in Leonard Fournette when they already had Ronald Jones rush for 1,000 yards. It's just like, it was Leonard Fournette. That obviously wasn't in their plans, but it just happened, so they went with it. OBJ is a free agent, so he might not be on the Rams. Robert Woods comes back from his injury, so he could. Jefferson is still probably at best the wide receiver 3 on the team, and they could just re-sign OBJ, and he would be back down to wide receiver 4 and buried. So
it does show their willingness to bring in another wide receiver, and also because I mean they're in their window, the Rams, so they're not going to test waters. They're going to go get a guy if they need one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is easily Mike Williams, but I get it. I don't agree with it. All right, let's do horrible trades. Trade 10 team, 1 quarterback, made at 9 a.m. on Sunday. What?
I'm interested to hear your take on this because
there is no take. What?
Well, the take that I want to hear from you is you and I discussed doing a video on should there or should there not be trade deadlines in dynasty leagues. This trade would be highly in favor of a trade deadline to a lot of people.
Hold on. Watch this. If you are in a league where someone trades Juju Smith-Schuster, Adam Thielen, a 22 third, and Raheem Mostert for Jamar Chase and Deebo Samuel, you kick that person out of the league. That is not a deadline problem. That is a manager problem. That is a person problem. This has nothing to do with trade deadlines. This has to do with collusion. This has to do with saying, hey, you win and let's split the pot. There is literally zero way you can explain this trade as a good idea. Take out either Jamar Chase or Deebo Samuel. You can't tell me that this was a good idea.
I love it.
That was super loud.
Jesus
my bad. I almost broke my microphone and my ears.
Yeah, and my ears.
Now I have an itch. Okay, yeah, no, this is there's no. I can't speak. You have broken me. This has absolutely nothing to do with the trade deadline. Like I can't say I got into a fight on Twitter because I don't fight with people on Twitter. Like I just jollingly, happily just respond to people no matter how mean they are to me. Got into an argument that this is a person issue. That trade deadlines is a person issue, not a rule issue. And this proves it because this isn't even something the other team can justify.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine having Jamar Chase and Deebo Samuel on the same team and then trading them away. Yeah.
If I was getting $200 to split the pot, yeah, I could imagine that.
I could imagine that as well. Yeah. So I did have a different horrible trade in here. I think it was one for Davante Adams, and then I saw this, and I thought this would be way more fun to talk about, and clearly it was. Yeah. So that's going to be a good little introduction to. Maybe we do it next week.
I'm down.
We're already talking about it, but we wanted to do a video on should there or should there not be a trade deadline in your dynasty leagues. And this is the time of year where that type of stuff should be brought up for next year.
Yep, absolutely.
If you want to try to, if you have one, to not implement one, or I guess vice versa if you want to do that too.
Yeah, rule changes. After the season ends, you throw the post on your message board. Hey, any ideas for changes for next season? Because rules that should absolutely be voted on. Mm-hmm. There's some rules where you could be like, I'm changing waivers from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. You don't need to vote on that. That's fine. You go do that. But a trade deadline is something that should absolutely be voted on because that is a very touchy subject for a lot of people. That was absolutely fake outrage before. You want to have a trade deadline, more power to you. I don't league shame. The only thing two tight end is the only thing I will league shame. That is wrong. You should not have two tight ends.
I agree.
if you want to have a trade deadline, more power to you. I just probably won't be in your league. But yeah, I've really showed that they know who I am. They know my answer. It's not like I need to, tease it for next week. But I absolutely will have both sides of the argument, and I really look forward to that conversation now. I'm gonna start taking notes.
Yeah, yeah, I will as well. And I'm that one's going into like YouTube channel Hall of Fame right there for the DLF channel, because that was the greatest response I've ever seen to a horrible trade. That was so good. Oh man.
Well, we've got no place to go from here, so we are going to call it quits for the DLF trade show. Thanks for tuning in. Russ Fisher at Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_. We'll catch you next time.